Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our Supernatural Watch Along podcast. I am Ryan and I am joined by my brother Kieran.
Hi.
And our good friend Ali.
How are you doing, everyone?
So, as you may have guessed from our Supernatural Watch Along podcast, we are going to go through the entirety of the show Supernatural one episode at a time and make these little podcasts discussing said episodes. So today we are discussing Supernatural Season 1, Episode 1, also known as the pilot. It aired in 2005 and was created and written by Eric Kripke. The show was directed by David Nutter and starred Jensen Ackles, Jared Padalecki, Sarah Shahi, Adrian. I'm terrible with names. I apologize.
I love it. I love it when you butcher the names.
Adrian Palicki as Jessica, Samantha Smith as Mary Winchester, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan as John Winchester. The synopsis, according to IMDb, Sam and Dean Winchester were trained by their father to hunt the creatures of the supernatural. Now, their father has mysteriously disappeared while hunting the demon that killed their mother 22 years ago. This episode scored an 8.5 out of 10 on IMDb.
Wow.
So, okay, before we delve into this episode in particular, we should probably talk about our personal history with the show.
We should probably clarify one thing before we go on.
What's that?
The episode is called Pilot, not The Pilot. So I
Okay.
apologize for his mistake at the start of the episode. Shocking behavior off the bat.
Just as well I'm going you here to fact check me.
That was common practice back then, was the first episodes would just be called Pilot. That's it.
We'll take it. And yeah, could have got some fact checkers. So, Ali,
Yes.
your history with Supernatural before us deciding to watch it to this.
Well, for one, I'm a Jason Ackles fan. For obviously with being on season 4.
Trying to say Jensen Ackles there.
Yeah, I can't pronounce his name. I butcher his name every time, so it's just one of these things. I know him obviously from season 4 of Smallville, and then keeping with the DC universe, know him as Jason Todd and Batman Under the Red Hood, and now most recently he has become the DC's animated Tomorrowverse version of Batman, but obviously know him from other stuff as well. But
he also done an absolutely phenomenal portrayal of Soldier Boy in
Yes, that's what I mean by other things. But watching his own show, because he actually left Smallville to be on this show, or killed off, shall I say? He got killed off Smallville so he could be on this show, and yeah, really looking forward to seeing where this goes.
So the important information to take there is that you have not seen Supernatural before. This is your
I've gotten into about 2 or 3 minutes of the pilot, didn't get all the way through the pilot, and just never delved back into it, basically.
Okay, so this podcast is going to be your introduction.
I'm going to be a virgin. I'm going to be the virgin to this show. Yes.
A first time watching for you, whereas for Kieran and myself, it is absolutely not our first year. Kieran, how many times, how often have you watched this show?
So I have watched, with the exception of season 1, I did not watch season 1 as it came out. But other than that, I have watched every season as it came out. And as the season came out, I have also rewatched the subsequent seasons. So I have probably watched season 1 through 15 on runs, maybe 5 times, not including the initial watches. So I've seen season 1 over 20 times now.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, so I mean, I've seen the show start to finish once from from season 1, season 15. I've seen this all once. I've seen 1 to 5 maybe 3 times, and I've seen 6 to 10 maybe twice. So it's yeah. So I've seen like 1 to 5 3 times, 6 to 10 twice, and then 11 to 15 just the once.
I think your watch is more appropriate, but I feel like when a new season comes out, you really want to just rewatch the initial seasons just to get back in the frame of mind where you
I
left
do
off.
that. I do
So-
that with Cobra Kai. I do that with Cobra Kai. I like to
It's-
watch it all the way through.
15
Again.
seasons of Supernatural, though. If you were doing that with every season, you'd spend your entire life just watching Supernatural.
But I don't sleep.
Yeah. And on that note, so between us, we have seen this show a lot. So it's actually going to be great to get Ali's perspective, getting it from a kind of new perspective, and also great to, I suppose, to get it from the other extreme, Keaton's perspective, who's seen it all the times. That's why Ali's not seen it. Keaton used up everyone else's viewings of it. Okay, so with our supernatural experience out the way, let's delve into the actual show. Now, this is something I wasn't going to talk about because it not even crossed my mind. But Ali, you actually mentioned this to me when we spoke yesterday very briefly, that the show doesn't have a title sequence, which you actually said you miss. You like a title sequence in a TV show.
I do. I think I think I'm from that era that I sort of appreciate the opening titles to a TV show, i.e., like what we're familiar with Star Trek. You get that little teaser of the episode, and then bang, you're into the credits and you're zoomed into action with the show. And as for this, all you got was the title sequence of the show, and that's it.
Title card. Now,
Title card, yes.
no, I did say to you on the call, the kind of, at least in my head, the reason for this, and it may not be the actual reason, but if you watch horror movies, there tends just to be a title card and not a title
Yes.
sequence of a song like there is on TV shows. And it
Mhm.
has, certainly for season 1, every episode is almost like a little horror movie.
Yes.
It makes sense for me to have that just title card, which then gives you the horror movie feel. What's your thoughts on this, Kieran?
I would agree, but at the same time, I don't think it would. Don't get me wrong. Like Ali, I do like a title sequence for a lot of shows because 90% of the shows we watched growing up, Friends, everything
Totally,
like that,
100%.
had
Yep.
an opening title sequence. It came on, and instantly, I still hear that song, and I think my key highlights of when I'm watching Friends or cartoons for my children. It brings back memories. So that's nice, and I feel like it's missed. And just because it's episodic and almost standalone doesn't mean it couldn't benefit from a title sequence. I mean, Star Trek early next gen is pretty much episodic, very
Yep.
little
100%.
overarching story, and again, the title sequence of it is fantastic. And I hear it and instantly think, "Oh, Picard's going to be a Borg. That's awesome." But spoilers for people that haven't seen season 3 of Star Trek Next Generation. You're 20 years too late. I apologize. But uh, however, I don't think the show misses it. I don't miss it from the show just because there is so much good music in this show already.
So
that is
much
just
going on as
fantastic.
well in the show. There's so much going on that it just blinks and you're like, right, we're into the show now.
Yeah, I don't feel like we miss it. Kieran's gone a bit blurry for some reason.
Yeah.
But well, Kieran source, there he is. But yeah, I don't feel like it's missing. I do agree that a title sequence in other shows is nice. With Ali mentioning kind of Smallville earlier, like
Yeah, it draws you in.
not love Remy Zero. That song is fantastic. So,
Timeless.
there are
Timeless.
definitely shows that the title sequence hits, and it's great. I think with Supernatural, though, with it being very horror-esque, it wouldn't fit.
Mhm.
I can't think of a single horror that has. I suppose Blair Witch 2 Book of Shadows has Marlon Manson and like a title sequence coming over the woods, but it's
I can't
not.
picture a song that would fit
Yeah,
for all the seasons
yeah.
that would go through all 15 seasons
So,
because there is quite a drastic tonal shift throughout the show.
yeah,
It
and
still
you're
works.
absolutely right about the music in the show being epic as well, and that's actually something else I might be worth mentioning. So I am watching, at least I will be watching 1 to 10 on Blu-ray because I happen to own 1 to 10 on Blu-ray. So I'm getting the original music they put on it. Now, Kieran, you said you watched something on Prime, was
Prime.
it? Or
That's correct. So I have it on Blu-ray, but we all know what it's like when you've already got the TV on and you're getting a bit lazy. It's late at night. You don't want to stand up. It's like it's on Prime as well. I won't put the Blu-ray on and rake through my Blu-rays. So I put it on Prime, and the end of an episode, I was like, that's not the song that should be playing at the end of this episode. So
Really? All
yeah,
right.
so I would
Okay.
watch that the music does appear to be changed for Amazon Prime. If anybody's watching it on Prime, go watch it on the original because the music's so much better. But
that wasn't this episode though, was it?
that was episode 3. Episode 3.
So spoilers, we've watched 3 episodes and we're going to record these episodes back to back. But I thought that's worth noting, I suppose, while we're discussing music. But the music in this episode in particular is outstanding, with AC/DC in particular. Okay, but kind of moving on then. So the show opens after our title card 22 years ago with Mary and John Winchester putting little baby Sammy to bed. Mary then goes to check on them and she walks in to find John standing over baby Sam. So she goes downstairs, only to find John is actually asleep on the chair. She runs back up and screams. We then move to John's perspective, where he finds his wife bleeding on their baby
From
and
the stomach.
bursting into flames from on the ceiling. Not your average death.
No,
one could
definitely
say.
not.
Ali, what did you think about this?
I thought it was very cool. This is probably the second time that I've not probably, the second time I've properly watched it. And obviously for TV show purposes, they couldn't have it as graphic as what it probably should be if she's bleeding from supposedly the stomach. And yeah, it was almost done as if she was crucified to the ceiling, so to speak. And I thought it was very, very cool, especially when the flames started, when she started being engulfed into flames. And I've just thought, for a pilot episode to do the effect like that, very cool. So a lot of time, a lot of the budget went into that sequence for the pilot.
Yeah, and should say John gave little baby Sam to Dean, who was only
Yes.
5 or so at the time, and Dean had to carry his brother out the house while the house goes on fire. Kieran, what do you think of the scene? I mean, you've seen it a bajillion times at this point, but
I mean, personally, I think it's a great way to start the show. I think it really makes the stakes for the main characters quite high off the bat. Instantly, it makes it almost gives you that emotional connection with them because their mum's just died, their mum's been taken away from a young age. They have to grow up with that trauma, and instantly you feel something for that. You maybe not be able to relate to it on a personal basis, but you can understand that if that happened to you, you'd probably feel some pretty raw emotions about it and have some pretty decided views on the person that or thing that did that to you. So it instantly makes you feel this sort of emotional resonance with the main characters. So I think fantastic way to start the show.
I'm curious, Ali. I just want to go back. You said you felt
Yeah.
it was like she had been crucified to the ceiling. Why?
The
Why?
way, I think it was just the glimpse of her, that was the view that I got, that she was sort of crucified to the ceiling, but she wasn't like, there wasn't
Yeah,
like
yeah.
obviously stakes in her hand.
Yeah.
Just if you visually see that from the director's perspective or the cameraman's perspective, you're looking at that and that's like an image of Christ, you know?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So, I also like to say about you saying how about it being graphic, or
Yes.
you said probably not as graphic as it should be.
No, it was,
I would almost, I would almost disagree because the show was rated a 15.
Mhm.
I think Supernatural, at least the early season of Supernatural, kind of pushes the boundary as to what they could get away with for a 15. I can't think of another TV show that's rated 15 that's as graphic as Supernatural is. And I mean, when you even the likes of Buffy and things like that were rated 15. And Supernatural's definitely scarier, I would
Yes.
say, than Buffy. It's more.
I think that's because they try and ground Supernatural in the real world. Buffy, you instantly know it's in a fantastical
Yes,
setting.
very
Loads
fantastic.
of, whereas Supernatural, they claim to be in the real world and just monsters exist here, which I think, again, sort of brings it down a level and makes everything seem a bit more visceral and real.
Yeah, I agree. Anyway, we then go from the death of Mary Winchester to 22 years later, where we find Sam is studying to be a lawyer at Stanford, and he has an upcoming interview for law school. He has a girlfriend, Jessica, and a friend who likes to buy them stuff. And he seems to be living a pretty normal life for a early 20 somethings young man. Only for his brother to come back into his life in the middle of the night. And Sam thinks it's an intruder, and there ends up being a slight scuffle. Which Dean ends up pointing out that he thinks Sam's lost a step. And it kind of gives us a real nice introduction to both characters in a very short time. We see that Sam's living a normal life, and he makes it very clear that he wants to continue living a normal life. They speak about how John told Sam to leave and not come back if he was want to go and have this normal life. And we see how Dean has continued to live the life with his dad. We also get a bit of a glimpse into Dean's personality when Jessica says she should go put some clothes on, and Dean says, "I wouldn't dream of it," which I thought is quite a nice touch into who he is as a person. What do you think about how we picked up with them, kind of this 22 years on, Ali?
So obviously something has passed during those 22 years. And I want to say from what they're hinting that they've been doing some hunting for the early stages of their life. And Sam's route wanted to get away from all that and be whatever normal is in that reality. And it was
We
nice.
even get that Sam's actually quite resentful about them being
Yes,
brought up
yes,
hunting.
yes,
And
that
he
as well.
complains
Yes,
that when he was young and he said he was afraid of the dark, his dad responded by giving him a gun.
yeah,
And he said he should have said, "Don't be scared of the dark." And Dean protests that. Of course you should be scared. You know what's out there. So yeah, there's some conflict there. What's your thoughts on this, Kieran?
Yeah, I think it's a good way to open. You get a bit about the characters. You can see that just from the intro scene, you can see that they're both highly trained. Uh, Dean was easily able to break into a house uh, for a beer, granted, which I do like. It's a great way to introduce the character. Uh, and yeah, you get the sense that he's quite a cocky, outgoing individual. Sam seems a bit more thoughtful and introspective. So I think it's a good way to introduce the characters.
They're definitely a yin and a yang. That's what I got from the pilot from the two.
Yeah, they're definitely very different as brothers, but you can see how they would both end up that way. Like it very quickly all makes sense. It falls into place, and you can tell how the death of their mother has shaped them into the young men they've kind of grown into. So Dean says the line that gets Sam out with him, Dad's on a hunting trip and he hasn't been home in a while. And so Sam agrees to go and help Dean look for their dad while, as long as he's back in time for his interview. And that's when they end up on their very first case together, or at least their first case together that we, as viewers, get to see. Where they end up on a stretch of road where men are going missing, and they find that their dad has been on the case as well, and we soon find that we find that they find their dad's motel room, which kind of looks a bit serial killer-esque. Things spread out everywhere, and the police end up getting involved, and Dean actually finds himself on the wrong end of the law at one point and in cuffs. And again, we kind of see how capable Dean is, quite easily picking the handcuffs with a paperclip. And we also see that he's a bit cocky and completely unconcerned about anything the police have to say. What do you think about this, Kieran?
Yeah, I think it's a good scene. I do like when they first arrive, they see the abandoned car on the bridge, pretend to be federal marshals, and the instant response is, "You're a bit young to be federal marshals," and it's why thank you. So instantly you see off the bat that he's a bit cheeky, which is fun. But yeah, it's again, I think it's a good way to introduce the premise of the show. You've already first 2 minutes of the show, their mums died, and then time skip, and then the first time they're looking, they see essentially a serial killer room with all their dad's gear, but nothing, no sign of their dad. So it's again, it raises the stakes again and makes them want to
There
find
was a half-eaten cheeseburger, though, and I'm just saying, let's be honest, who's leaving half a cheeseburger?
a serial killer.
I mean,
That's it.
yeah, you're no right in the head if you're leaving half a cheeseburger. I'm just saying. So, anyway, we soon find out. Obviously, we're not going to go through the whole show scene by scene, or we'd be here for longer than the show run.
Yes, it would be.
But we soon find out that the creature, the freak of the week, the monster, whatever you want to call it, that is taking these men and killing them is
Unfaithful men as well.
unfaithful men.
Faithful men,
Is a
yeah.
woman in white. So the story behind the woman in white is that her husband cheated on her, and in a rage, she kills her children. And then when she realized what he's done, she takes her own life. And as a result,
Of course, that's what you do.
as a result, she is cursed to walk this stretch of road and take the life of unfaithful men. Ali, what did you think of the woman in white?
It's I've heard of this kind of thing, this kind of story before, where there's a woman in white that haunts men, unfaithful men. It's obviously not from watching this show, but I've read something or watched a show that's similar like that, and watching it in this kind of show and it was kind of freaky. I have to say, uh, and the fact that she took them back a lot of the times to her death place, I thought was kind of strange, because they start off in the house that she killed her children in. It was almost as if to say, you feel bad for yourself, but then you end up
On the
killing
bridge.
on the bridge. Yeah, it just it felt very as if they couldn't make up their minds on where they wanted to kill the unfaithful, you know?
I didn't get that. I didn't get that feeling. What did you get from it, Kieran?
I quite liked it. The victim you saw, obviously got scared at the house because it was abandoned. And let's be
So
fair,
awful.
looking at that house, it was creepy as fuck. I would have ran as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they ran away, and that's why they died on the bridge as he was trying to flee from the abandoned house. But I think that was sort of the premise, that she leads them back to the house, and then as they flee, that's why they died in different places around the sprawl of this road and not all in one place. Because, if they all ended up dying at this house, the premise of who did it becomes much less, intense as, oh, has someone died at that house because it was clearly fucking them that's killing everybody at that house.
Mhm.
So with them dying all along the stretch of road, it sort of expands the mystery and means that the brothers have to investigate to
I
find out
want
who
to
it
say
is.
that, sorry for cutting you off there, but I feel that's how she moved between the bridge and the house as well, because she was killing them at these specific areas around the area as well. Quite possible. I'm just shooting in the dark there, because normally with a spirit is they only inhabit where they die. They don't. That's quite a long stretch of road for what she was inhabiting. I can't say the word. Sorry.
So, Ali, they explained how you kill a ghost in the show. Now, obviously, how you're supposed to kill a ghost is not how they took care of the woman in white.
Mm.
And they took care of her by they worked out, or Sam worked out, that she was scared to go home because that's
Mhm.
where she killed her children. And so Sam drove the Impala through a wall, uh, forcefully taking her home, where she kind of merged with her children, and they took her, or they all went, found peace,
So wherever they went. Yes.
yeah. Um,
Did you
but
say
that's
found
not how.
peace? Because I'm pretty sure they were on fire as they were merging together.
They were.
And
It was
I've
almost
never
as if they
seen
were.
anybody be set on fire and describe they found peace.
Fair.
They were in immense pain.
They were dragging her to hell almost.
That's also actually quite likely, yeah. But anyway, she was dragged to hell by her children. Then let's go with that one. So, what, Kieran? How do you kill a ghost in Supernatural?
You salt their bones and burn it.
You salt their bones and burn it. You have to find the bones of said ghost, salt them, burn them. Job done. Now, after that, they're like, "Oh, good job. Take Sam back to Stanford," where he goes home and finds a freshly made cookie, Jessica. It's a real nice moment that was very quickly ruined by her burning to death on the ceiling. Ali, what did you think of Jessica's death?
Well, I thought it was kind of cack, because I obviously know this actress from The Orville. She was also in season in Smallville for like an episode as well. believe her name's Andrea Binsvig. I'm only going to try and pronounce her last name, so I do
Her name is
apologize.
Adrienne something. She's the one whose last name I couldn't pronounce at the start of the show.
Yeah. I thought it was kind of like, oh, right, okay, so Sam's not going to have a girlfriend for the rest of this season then. I was just like, oh well, okay, fair enough. But it was cool that they recreated that scene of how their mother died. So obviously the budget went a wee bit further to get both scenes back to back.
But I personally think this scene bookended this episode incredibly. You know, it starts with their mum burning on the ceiling. It ends with Sam's girlfriend, who looks quite similar to their mum, burning to death on the ceiling. And both times, Dean drags his brother out the building. So it's
Almost as if he was saving him from getting dragged to hell. Almost.
Saving him for fire.
Saving him for fire, yeah.
Saving him from straight up fire. I don't know if he'd been dragged to hell, but so yeah, I think perfectly bookends the episode. Kieran, what's your thoughts on Jessica's death?
I like it. I agree with yourself. I think it's a good way to round off the episode. I feel maybe we would have had a bit more emotional resonance with the scene if it happened slightly later, end of episode 2. Maybe
Yeah, I feel
3,
that too.
just so we had a bit more emotional connection between Sam and Dean, so we could really see the loss and then play into that more for further episodes in the season. But I understand why it was done in episode 1, so I'm not sad that it was done here. I just think we probably could have got a bit more out of it if it went longer. But I understand it's the pilot.
How
They
would
kind
you
of had
do
to
that?
So
If you were going to extend it, how would you do it? Because obviously the killer here, and it gets Sam on the road.
Exactly, which is the
if
hard
Sam's
part.
not on the road, how do you continue the show? Do you do Dean on his own and then he just comes back a couple of episodes time to find it happen? Or
you couldn't do that. There are ways to do it, I think, which I think we can probably go into further down the line when we've done a few episodes, as there's a couple of monsters that would work in Stanford that will be in Stanford that I obviously don't want to spoil for people that haven't seen it. So we'll bookmark the question and come back in an episode.
Yeah, perfect. We'll revisit this down the line. So, okay, with that being said, before we rate the episode, which we will, I am going to share something. Assuming this works.
We've not discussed the rating system. Are we 1 to 5?
We're going to rate out of 10. We're going to do it. We're going to stick with kind of how IMDb have done it out of 10.
Whole numbers or 2 decimal points?
You can do decimal points if you like. Okay. We have, assuming you can both see this, and hopefully everyone else can see this. Everyone at home, if you're watching, you may just have audio. We have a tier list for each of the supernatural monsters in season 1. That's right. I spent earlier today making this, which took longer than you might think because I'm rubbish with stuff like this. So, Kieran, we have our woman in white. S tier being the best, D tier being the worst.
Oh, I mean,
in between. Where would you rate the woman in white?
I mean, Constance Welch as an opening antagonist is good. She's not S tier or A tier because I know what's coming. I think as a great opening, definitely, I think B. I think it makes it hard. It makes it hard because I know
You've got to try and don't worry about what's coming, especially because we can alter the tier list as we go. So,
Because comparative to some other things,
yeah, Ali,
probably
you're better for this because you haven't seen it yet. Where would you rate The Woman in White on the
I'm gonna put it in C because
C tier?
because it's the pilot, and I'm not saying it wasn't a good pilot, but we've we've discussed on previous shows that we've watched, uh, s- there might be something better down the line that there might be a monster of the week down the line that I just think was far superior than
Okay, well, I'll accept that. So Kieran would rate B, Ali would rate C. I don't think she's a C tier. She's definitely not an S tier. But I really liked her. I think it was a great intro to the world. I think she looked super creepy when her face turned, but really seductive before then. You could see why men were letting her get in the car, despite the fact that she was always a bit creepy. I would probably give her, I think I'm going to put her in B as well. So we've got two B tiers. So that is where Constance Welch, aka the Woman in White, is ending up just now. We have our first B tier, and the rest of the rest of the ratings will come as we do episodes, and we can move villains about. But Ali, I think you're absolutely fucking mad if you think she's seen as well. Well,
you wanted the Virgin's you wanted the Virgin's perspective. You're getting it. So
okay. Kieran, we've said we're rating out of 10 with decimal points allowed.
okay.
Where
So
would you rate the pilot?
I'm gonna go to
Apologies. Where would you rate pilot?
pilot. I'm gonna go to 732 decimal points on this just to be a dickhead. Not really. I would probably. I mean, I think as a standalone episode, it's a solid 8. Yeah, it's a solid 8. It is a good opening. It's a strong opening to a season, and from this you can probably see why it got 15 seasons.
Ali, what would you rate uh, season 1, episode 1?
an 8.
An 8 as well. Okay. I would rate it a bit higher than both of you. I think I would actually rate it a 9. Because I think it's an outstanding opening to a show. I often find the first episodes of TV shows are often not that great. Sometimes takes a couple of episodes to suck you in. I don't think that's the case with this show at all. I think Supernatural hits the ground running. I think the only con in this episode, like literally the only thing that I think could be better about this episode, is there are quite a few exposition dumps in the dialogue. But that's because they've got to catch you up 22 years that you miss on screen. It's unavoidable. I don't think there's any way around having exposition dumps in. It's just I found it quite noticeable on this watch. I don't know if I found it noticeable my first time watching. I probably didn't. Well,
Just because you needed the dump the first time watching.
yeah, absolutely had to have a dump.
Poor choice of wording. Yeah, poor choice
Yeah.
of wording. But yeah, you get what I mean. You needed that information. That context is required. Whereas when you've
Absolutely.
seen it enough, it's no longer required. You're like, why are they explaining the basics to me?
You noticed it more, but yeah. But that's the only thing I think could have been done slightly cleaner. Other than that, I think it's a normal episode, so I think 9 out of 10. And with that being said, that wraps up our first episode where we discuss Supernatural. So join us next week when we will be releasing our episode for season 1, episode 2. Wendigo.
Good episode.
Spoilers. And we will see you then. Bye for now.
Bye.
Cheers.